The BMW S1000RR. Probably the most hyped up superbike over the last 15 years.
The new 2025 model is known for its wings stolen off a 747 aircraft, variable valve technology borrowed from a Honda Civic, and heated grips that can go 180 miles per hour.
Okay, well, that might not be what comes to mind first, but they're important details nevertheless.
The RR shook up the superbike world around 15 years ago with revolutionary rider rates, and it hasn't stopped pushing the boundaries since.
But has that constant push for perfection stifled its character? Could it possibly live up to the hype created around it? And why do these wings flex so much? Well, as a self-appointed superbike connoisseur, I'm taking on the responsibility of finding the answers to those very important questions. However, I have just 127 hours or 5.29 days to do so. Wish me luck.
Thank you to Rebel Horn for sponsoring this video.
The S1000RR was first sold to the public back in 2010, and it immediately challenged its superbike competitors with its lightweight and technology. Since then, it's gone through a multitude of generations and made quite a name for itself. But yet, even as a superbike fanatic, I've not yet ridden one.
So when BMW Motorrad East Rand in South Africa agreed to let me steal one for a few days, I zipped up my Rebel Horn jacket and got to work.
I mean, it would be rude to turn down 206 horsepower, wouldn't it?
This is the new generation for 2025, starting at around $20,000. So if you're local and in the market for a new bike, used bike, in need of a workshop or just some apparel and accessories, BMW Motorrad East Rand is the place to be.
A bike's quirks are most obvious within the first hour or so of riding, and many of those quirks will be amplified in the rain, which just so happened to be the weather that I ended up with.
For starters, it comes with a real key from BMW in 2025.
Mostly because they know that race leathers don't have a pocket for a key fob. It's strange, but also kind of refreshing.
First gear can be pretty jerky. However, it will comfortably putt around town in second gear all day long without being jerky or bogging down like most other superbikes would. The throttle feels like a video game controller because it's so light. It has a sensor back here to record the steering angle and another one back here to measure where the shock is in its stroke.
I guess it could be for both rider aid and telemetry reasons.
This windscreen isn't the prettiest, but it offers the best wind protection on a sport bike I've ever experienced. But most notably, I was comfortable on it within a few minutes, which is quite a statement when riding a 206 horsepower missile for the first time in the rain.
Which means we have a problem. I think I might like it, and I was really hoping that I wouldn't, because you guys know how I feel about my R1. Okay, so it doesn't take long to appreciate the styling of this bike either.
At first, I was disappointed by this dull color, but it quickly grew on me and now I quite like it, although I would still choose the white one over this.
There are obviously the updates that this new generation got, like these gigantic wings that are quite a spectacle from any angle.
And a little bit lower down are these new brake ducts built into the front mudguard, intended to guide fresh air into the calipers to keep the brakes cool.
Personally, I don't struggle with brakes overheating on the road, but I do think these could serve as a great way to blow excess brake dust out of the caliper, saving you time in the long run. These two aero updates make the bike look really beefy from the front, not the sleek, narrow profile from years past, but a familiar look nonetheless thanks to MotoGP bikes. Since this is my first time riding a RR, I've also noticed a few things that are new to me at least.
For example, the top triple clamp and handlebars are one piece. There's no separate clip-on handlebar, which would get expensive if you dropped it.
These M levers look and feel great, and I really appreciate the matching lever guard here. Plus, die-hard racers will appreciate that there isn't a lever guard on the clutch side. Unfortunately, I didn't get to try the carbon wheels though, just these cast alloy ones. But they definitely don't feel heavy while riding.
The alloy wheels get these front discs that are bolted to the rim through the floating buttons, rather than separate bolt holes. Weird, but it clearly works. And the rear wheel is actually asymmetric, with the spokes further off to one side. The signature gills are back on the side fairings.
The lower panels here are just plastic without paint, as is the front mudguard. It does look a tad tacky and cheap, but it's probably better for rock chips anyway.
The swing arm is this nice grey and has a powder-coated texture.
I've always loved this trellis subframe. It really makes it look like a race bike. It now comes in this silver color rather than the old bronzy gold color. Not as good in my opinion.
These light ride carbon heel guards, however, bother me, since there's no way this isn't just plastic. It's also got an Akropovich slip-on, which looks much better than stock. But since it still has the 69 stock catalytic converters and a dB killer, it still sounds stock.
Now, it's no secret that these are really popular and hyped up bikes, but the truth is that any bike can be fun to ride for an hour or two. So I wanted to make sure that I had a few hours under my belt before I admitted to the world that they really are as good as everyone says.
My only history with BMWs is my short-lived 1200 GS and a few days with an XR thanks to a mate of mine.
Since I am a sport bike fanatic, the GS was never going to be my new favorite bike. But the only issue that I could find with the XR was that it was almost too perfect, and it kind of lacked character as a result. So that was my biggest concern with the RR. I knew it would be bloody fast, I knew it would be comfortable, and I knew it would be packed with technology. But I didn't think it would be as fun as some of the other superbike options.
Right away, it's stupid nimble. The initial tip over is intoxicating, and then it just keeps leaning with just as much ease.
I honestly can't tell you if it's light wheels, a good center of gravity, amazing gyroscopic forces, or just an incredible rider. But whatever it is, it makes cornering easy. Then there's the engine. It's a 999cc inline 4-cylinder, but most of the magic happens up in the cams.
The intake camshaft has 2 lobes per valve, each with a different profile. Then there are solenoids that enable the camshaft to move side to side at around 9,000 RPM.
Below 9,000 RPM, it uses the torque cam, giving it more bottom-end grunt. And then above 9,000 RPM, it switches to the power cam. This opens the intake valve a little bit more and for a little bit longer, giving the motor more top-end power. And this switch between lobes happens in just 10 milliseconds.
And yes, you can feel it. BMW call it shift cam, and it means the engine never stops pulling hard enough to give you whiplash. Combine that with their infamous electronics and little wings, and the front wheel gently pops off the ground and hovers until you release the adrenaline tube.
The new wings claim 23.1 kilograms of downforce at 300 kilometers per hour. I only got to 299, so I can't tell you if that is true or not, but what I can say is that it feels very stable at high speeds.
My butt dyno can neither confirm nor deny the claimed 206 horsepower figure. There's no doubt it's rapid, but it feels so in control that I often question it.
If it wasn't for the numbers on the speedo reaching triple my IQ score in mere seconds and the front wheel levitating, I wouldn't believe BMW for even a second. The frame and suspension are unchanged from the previous generation, so it still has 45mm upside down Marzocchi forks leading the charge.
The left fork has electronic damping adjustment, so you can choose between road, which is softer, Dynamic, which changes the damping on the fly as you ride, or Race, which is stiffer. The right fork has manual preload adjustment, which is perfect for serious riders looking for manual adjustment. And then in the rear, there's a Marzocchi monoshock. It's obviously a stiff setup, but that's exactly what you want on a superbike and complements the bike as a whole. The moment I finally gave in and accepted how good this bike is was when it had an answer for everything I needed.
When I was cold, it had heated grips. When I kept speeding, it had cruise control, so I had to relinquish control of the throttle. When there was a hill, it had hill start assist. When there was traffic, it had 83 pound-feet of torque to maneuver past it. It always seemed to go above and beyond expectations.
And when I got a bit too trigger happy, it had 4-piston radial calipers paired with a Nissan radial master cylinder and steel lines to slow things down.
I'm not sure if this finger is just getting stronger, so I'm better at one finger braking, or if the brakes really are that good. But considering that the B on the caliper doesn't end in Rembo, you wouldn't be able to tell while braking.
The rear caliper, however, is a 1-piston Brembo. I guess that one was too tricky for BMW to manufacture. But it's hard to believe that such a weapon can be tame enough to comfortably ride around town. I guess that's where German engineering comes into the picture.
The riding position is a lot more compact than I expected. I thought it would be quite stretched out, but it's not. That paired with the wide bars makes it pretty comfortable for a sport bike, but still plenty racy enough when you tuck in.
Even at 5'7", I have plenty of contact with the ground. It's also a pleasure to squeeze with your knees, which is great for clinging to the bike, but also probably the only hug you'll get in Germany. At city speeds, it manages the heat very discreetly. Every now and then you'll hear the radiator fan whining, but since you have to go searching for the coolant temperature, you never feel concerned about it. It manages to never feel overwhelming or like a handful. It's nippy, it's light to push around, and you wouldn't believe what it's capable of doing while riding in the city.
The only challenge is that even just at idle with the clutch out, it's already doing over 20 kilometers per hour. But after all, that's why we love superbikes.
Now, the seat cowl is a contentious topic, because on the one hand, it looks great. Plus, it has this little rubber pad, which means my backpack didn't even scratch the paint.
That is brilliant. However, I didn't get the passenger seat, so I couldn't get my fiancée to test the passenger amenities for you. I suspect it's like all sport bikes. The smaller your passenger is, the more comfortable it is for both of you. But unfortunately now, I can't show you how cute we look in our new matching Rebel Horn Jacks jackets.
I can't tell you how they offer both male and female versions of this jacket so that it fits perfectly. I can't tell you about how it has a removable waterproof membrane that I really appreciated the morning I picked the bike up in the rain. Or about how my phone was dry in the waterproof pocket, how the waist, wrist and bicep areas are adjustable, how there's a zip to attach it to riding pants.
I can't even mention the shoulder, elbow and back armor that CE level 2 protection, or that these mesh pieces on the front and back are breathable. It really sucks. I was looking forward to telling you about how high quality they are and how affordable they are. But if I was able to tell you about our new jackets, I would definitely link them down in the description below so that you could see all the color options and see the prices. But what I can tell you is that it always takes me a while to get used to all the tech, settings and features you can play with on these bikes. First, I want to show you a feature that you probably haven't seen on a brand new bike in a while. If you want to fill up, you can't just pull this tab. You've actually got to insert this device called a key and twist. It's pretty futuristic, but I don't think it's going to catch on.
But in all seriousness, BMW still have the best display on offer, even if it's been around for 7 years or so by now.
My new favorite feature is hill hold. You just give the front brake lever a quick, hard squeeze and it keeps the brakes activated for you. So you can be sitting at a traffic light in neutral with no hands or feet on a brake lever and you're not rolling anywhere. It's way more fun than it should be.
Of course, it has your usual BMW modes: rain, road, dynamic, and race.
And I'm slowly getting used to features like heated grips and cruise control on a superbike. At first, I thought it was stupid, but in places with speed cameras, I've started launching from every single light and hitting the cruise control button when I reach the speed limit. So I don't have to worry about speeding and I can focus more on the traffic anyway.
There's obviously the standard quickshifter and blipper that's always silky smooth and plenty fast enough. The rider aids are top tier, like we've come to expect from BMW. They intervene discreetly enough to make you think you're an amazing rider, which is probably both a good and bad thing.
But most importantly, it had the feature that I thought it might be missing.
Fun. I found myself accelerating for no reason, braking late and hard for my own amusement, and banging through the gears simply because I could. Usually when a bike is easy to ride, it can be boring, but this strikes a really good balance. Don't get me wrong, I still hate the S1000 hype train, but it really is as good as they say.
If it just had a V4 or even just a cross-plane crank, I don't think I would hesitate at all to buy one. Nevertheless, 127 hours later, the RR is back with Motorrad East Rand. So let's give it a score out of 60, shall we? I think its only competition is going to be the 1390 Super Duke that's currently topping the charts. Styling. The demeanor those lights and wings give it is a true 9 out of 10. It would be a 10 out of 10 if it was the white one. Practicality. For a superbike, it's ridiculously easy to daily ride. 7 out of 10. Fun. Way more fun than I expected, which is a bizarre statement for a superbike. It made me smile at least once or twice, so 9 out of 10. Price. When you consider that a 2025 Yamaha R1 starts at just $1,000 less than the RR, and the R1 hasn't been properly updated in a decade now, it makes the RR look like not such bad value. But nevertheless, 20 grand is still a ton of money for a motorcycle, so 6 out of 10. Speed. It doesn't get faster than this. Just ask Toprak. 10 out of 10. Sound. This is where it falls short for me. 7 out of 10. And that's assuming that it actually had a full system Acra.
Giving the 2025 S1000RR 48 out of 60. And putting it just 1 point shy of the 1390 Super Duke.
These two bikes were actually far more similar than I expected. Yes, one is a super bike and one is a hyper-naked, but they're both stupidly fast. They both have a ton of technology and they both have variable valve technology. So the KTM either won because the V-twin sounds better or because it's oranger. But anyway, let me know if you would have a 2025 RR in your collection and I'll see you on the next ride.